Welcome to the Bible Stories with Gian channel. Have you ever felt completely overwhelmed, like life's burdens are just too much to bear? Even the strongest among us, those with unshakable faith, can feel crushed by fear, exhaustion, or uncertainty. Today we'll journey through the incredible story of Elijah, a prophet who experienced miraculous moments, profound challenges, and a God who provided in the most unexpected ways. This is a story of faith, provision, and hope, a story that still speaks to us today. Elijah was a prophet during a dark time in Israel's history. The land was ruled by King Ahab, a man described in 1 Kings 16:30 as doing more evil in the eyes of the Lord than all the kings before him. Ahab's marriage to Queen Jezebel, a fervent worshiper of the false god Baal, made matters worse. Together they led the Israelites into idol worship, turning their hearts away from the one true God. In the midst of this rebellion, Elijah was called by God to stand as a bold voice of truth. Imagine the courage it took to confront Ahab and Jezebel, knowing they could kill him at any moment. Yet Elijah obeyed, delivering a message from God. A severe drought would strike the land until the people repented. This wasn't just a natural disaster. It was a spiritual wake-up call. The drought symbolized the spiritual dryness in Israel's hearts, a reminder of what happens when we drift away from God. After delivering this difficult message, Elijah's life was in danger. God instructed him to flee to a remote place called the Brook Cherith. There, something extraordinary happened. God commanded ravens, unclean birds known for their scavenging habits, to bring Elijah food. Every morning and evening, these unlikely messengers delivered bread and meat, sustaining Elijah during the drought. Can you picture it? A lone man sitting by a quiet brook, watching as black ravens swoop down with his daily meals. This miraculous provision wasn't just about physical sustenance. It was a lesson in trust. Elijah had to rely on God completely, receiving just enough for each day. It's a powerful reminder for us, too. Sometimes God provides for us in ways we don't expect, using unlikely sources to meet our needs. Despite experiencing God's provision, Elijah wasn't immune to fear and exhaustion. After a dramatic confrontation with the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, where God sent fire from heaven to prove his power, Elijah hoped for a national revival. But instead, Jezebel vowed to kill him, and Elijah fled into the wilderness, overwhelmed and ready to give up. Under a broom tree, he prayed, "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take my life." 1 Kings 19:4. Even this great prophet felt defeated. Believing his efforts didn't abandon Elijah in his despair. Instead, he cared for him tenderly, sending an angel to provide food and water. Then God spoke to Elijah, not in a powerful wind, earthquake, or fire, but in a gentle whisper. This moment reminds us that God meets us in our lowest points, not with condemnation, but with compassion and guidance. God's provision is perfect. When Elijah needed food, God sent ravens. When he needed rest, God provided quiet and nourishment. And when he needed direction, God spoke. These moments teach us to trust that God knows exactly what we need, even when we can't see the full picture. Trust God in uncertain times. Elijah didn't always understand God's plan. The brook eventually dried up and he had to move on. But every step of the way, God was orchestrating something greater. Like Proverbs 16:9 says, "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." Strength in weakness. Even prophets like Elijah struggled with fear and discouragement. Yet his story shows that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. When we feel like we can't go on, God is there to lift us up. Elijah's story challenges us to examine our own lives. Are we relying on God daily, or are we clinging to our own plans and resources? Like Elijah, we may face seasons of drought, times when life feels dry and hopeless. But those moments can draw us closer to God, teaching us to depend on Him fully. Remember how Jesus taught us to pray, "Give us today our daily bread," Matthew 6:11. This isn't just about physical food, it's about trusting God to provide what we need each day, whether it's strength, comfort, or guidance. The story of Elijah and the ravens is more than an ancient tale. It's a message of hope for us today. Just as God provided for Elijah in the wilderness, He can provide for you. Even when life feels overwhelming, remember, God sees you. He knows your needs, your struggles, and your heart. If God can command ravens to deliver food, imagine what He can do in your life. Trust Him, even when the path seems uncertain. Because with God, even the smallest cloud on the horizon can bring an outpouring of blessings. So as you face your own challenges, hold on to this truth. The same God who cared for Elijah cares for you. Trust in His provision, rely on His timing, and know that He is always faithful. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the remarkable story of Elijah and the ravens. His experience reminds us that even in our darkest moments, God sees us, knows our needs, and provides in unexpected ways. Just as God commanded the ravens to care for Elijah, He has the power to meet our needs, no matter how unlikely the source. Let this story inspire us to trust God's timing, rely on His provision, and remain steadfast in our faith, even when the brook dries up. Remember, God's plans for you are greater than you can imagine, and He will always guide you through every season of life. If this message encouraged you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories of faith and hope. See you in the next video, and may God bless you abundantly.